the dog owner may have insurance to help pay medical bills and other expenses because of a dog attack. If your loved one has been injured by a dog, call the law offices of John Day for a free consultation.
Now, WGNS Good Neighbor Events. Maybe you're new to town and want to learn more about the history of our community. Head over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse this Saturday anytime between 9 in the morning and noon. Just drop in and learn history from the Rutherford County Historical Society. Ask them your questions, bring old photographs, and learn more about this community. It's all free, including the coffee and donuts. That's Saturday. Drop in anytime between 9 and noon. The one-room Ransom Schoolhouse is at 717 North Academy Street in Murfreesboro. The Cripple Creek Cloggers are offering free dance lessons this Sunday. It's great exercise, a wonderful opportunity to meet friends, and possibly open the door to world travel. And the lessons are free. That's 4 o'clock this Sunday afternoon at the Smyrna Senior Activity Center. It's at 100 Rakes Street in Smyrna. And again, it's free. A special thank you to our world ambassadors, the Cripple Creek Cloggers. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor Events.
Hi, I'm Wade Hayes, owner of Toots Good Food and Fun. I strongly believe that volunteers make a positive difference in the quality of life here in our community.
State Farm Agent Michael Busey serves as Vice Chair for Main Street Murfreesboro's Advisory Board. He is essentially the board's steady second in command, the person who keeps things moving when the chair can't be there, and helps to share the leadership load. Michael Busey, a dedicated volunteer with Main Street Murfreesboro, whom people can count on.
At Toots, we strongly believe that it's important for every one of our citizens to give some of their time and talent back into the community. And we want to honor these individuals with a Toots gift certificate good at any of our Rutherford County locations. 860 Northwest Broad Street, on Church Street in the Barfield area, in Smyrna on Sam Ridley, and Toots West on Franklin Road at Rucker Lane.
Are you looking to buy or sell real estate? I'm Betsy Maples with Maples Realty and Auction, and we've been selling property in Middle Tennessee since 1969. Whether it be traditional listings, sales, or auctions, let us visit your property and help you decide what method is best for your situation. Call Maples Realty and Auction today, because it's our people that's the difference.
Maples Realty and Auction.
Sold by Maples Realty and Auction.
Your 401k is likely one of your most important assets, but it's only one part of a comprehensive retirement strategy. Edward Jones can help you understand how your retirement assets fit into your entire retirement picture so that you can work toward meeting your unique retirement goals. Contact me, Lee Colvin, your Edward Jones financial advisor in the Public Shopping Center on South Rutherford Boulevard, or give us a call at 615-907-7056. Edward Jones, Making Sense of Investing, member SIPC.
It's All That's News with Matt Lane on News Radio WGNS.
CBS National News and traffic are coming up on All That's News.
Portions of our programming have been pre-recorded. The Good Neighbor Network, WGNS Murfreesboro, W270AF Murfreesboro, W263AI Murfreesboro, Smyrna.
This is CBS News on the Hour, your home for original reporting.
I'm Heather Bosch. A difficult task for crews working to recover 8 backcountry skiers who died in a Northern California avalanche.
To the ongoing challenges of the weather, the avalanche conditions, the effort remains ongoing, as well as our search for the remaining skier.
That's Nevada County Sheriff Shannon Moon, CBS's Matt Gutman.
The sheriff shed a lot of light on this rescue mission that she now declared a recovery mission, meaning that the 9 people that they thought were missing or were declared missing are now believed to be dead. 6
skiers did survive and were rescued. A landmark civil case in Los Angeles today pits Meta against plaintiffs who say its social media platforms like Instagram are meant to be addictive and fail to protect kids. CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified their policy is not to allow kids under 13 to set up accounts, but CBS's Carter Evans says plaintiffs presented their own evidence.
They pulled out some
internal documents that showed the previous strategic goal and focus was total time spent on the platform by teens. And so this presentation that they displayed as evidence said the goal was to increase U.S. teen time spent. Summary, big bets, this is back in 2017. The fifth item was under 13-year-olds.
President Trump marks Black History Month with a White House reception.
Happy Black History Month.
The president speaking before a packed crowd in the East Room of the White House, where he welcomed Black Americans from all walks of life and paid tribute to the late civil rights icon, Jesse Jackson.
He was a real hero, and I just want to pay my highest respects to Reverend Jesse Jackson.
The president has sometimes grappled with accusations of racism, which he blamed on Democrats. He did not address his recent social media post depicting former President Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama as apes, something he blamed on an unnamed staffer. Linda Kenyon, CBS News, the White House.
U.S. and Iranian negotiators met again for indirect talks about curbing Iran's nuclear program. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
There was a little bit of progress made, but we're still very far apart on some issues. I believe the Iranians are expected to come back to us with some more detail in the next couple of weeks, and so the president will continue to watch how this plays out.
Maine joins the growing list of states seeing measles cases as vaccine rates drop. State health official Dora Ann Mills.
This is one of the most contagious, if not the most contagious virus we know of. We knew it was a matter of time before we saw cases here in Maine, and indeed, that is what we're seeing.
Just in, the U.S. advances to the Olympic men's hockey semifinals with a 2-1 overtime victory over Sweden. This is CBS News.
The stars shine brighter on CBS Morning.
This is a slam dunk.
So cute. Gail came in singing for me today.
On CBS Mornings.
If you're drowning in IRS debt and can't afford to pay, then you need to take advantage of special IRS tax programs that are available and free yourself from IRS collection efforts once and for all. Due to the financial hardship consumers are facing throughout the country, the Internal Revenue Service has made it easier to settle delinquent tax problems. An open phone line has been established by Community Tax for consumers to call and see if they qualify. Take down this number or store it in your cell phone, but call the Community Tax Helpline at 800-269-3454. If you owe back taxes to the IRS and cannot afford to pay them back, or even if you have years of unfiled tax returns, there's no need to fear anymore. But you have to call the Community Tax Helpline today at 800-269-3454 for the help that you need. Don't take on the IRS alone. They can attack your wages, savings, pension, home, and even your Social Security check. Call 800-269-3454 for your free consultation and to see if you qualify.
Good afternoon. Still trying to recover from this earlier wreck on 440 westbound, right there at the 65 split, headed back up to Nolensville Pike. It's already heavy in the eastbound lanes in that area on 440 eastbound. In the Mount Juliet area, I see slow traffic. Not sure why everybody's slowing down here on 40 east around the 227 mile marker. That's just past the Mount Juliet exit. STR Towing and Recovery says give them a call here in Middle Tennessee if you need their help for a tow for a car or a truck. STR Towing and Recovery. I'm Commander Chuck. You're on time traffic.
Premier 6 Theater on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Let's all go to the movies.
Check out what's showing at murfreesboromovies.com. Popcorn popped fresh daily.
Movies at the good old Premier.
Premier 6 on Broad in Jackson Heights.
Rutherford weather.
Showers likely tonight, otherwise cloudy. Lows around 59. A blend of clouds and sun tomorrow. Chance of thunderstorms, high of 74. I'm WGNS meteorologist Derek Height. Right now, 61.
We do it your way at Sir Pizza.
Order a royal feast or create your own pizza online now at sirpizzatn.com. Carry out and delivery for dinner tonight at sirpizzatn.com.
We're the Good Neighbor Network. FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro. FM 100.5 Smyrna. Audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com.
From the first pitch to the final buzzer, this is where the conversation starts. All sports talk on WGNS and Big G TV, covering the Preps, MTSU, news from Tennessee and nationwide. Now, here's all sports talk on the Good Neighbor Network.
And welcome back here on another fantastic Wednesday night. Dylan Simmons with you on All Sports Talk. It is February 18th, 2026. Started the day with a jacket. It started to warm up more as time went on, and then eventually ditched the jacket. Now it's cold and it's rainy again outside, so I'm kind of unsure where to go with today's temperatures. We'll get more on the WGNS weather, I'm sure, throughout the show. But we're here to talk sports, and we got a hefty show tonight. For those watching on Big G TV, the paper is very, very thick. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so I'm not going to spend any more time just rambling on. We're going to get right into it. I want to start tonight with MTSU men's basketball. They had a big matchup against Western Kentucky this past weekend, and this was another classic edition of the rivalry. There's a lot of excitement that surrounds the two games that these two teams play every year, and that energy is something that you only really can understand by attending it live and in person. The 100 Miles of Hate series brings a different kind of intensity to the table every single time. As somebody who's been to this game quite a few times at this point, I can tell you that whether you're in Bowling Green or in Murfreesboro, it's going to bring a certain intensity, a certain vibe that you just don't get with other Conference USA games. Now, I may be biased, as the hat indicates, but I do truly believe that as far as rivalries go, this is the best in Conference USA. I think it brings it to the table each and every time. And you have memorable games, and this was another classic example of a memorable game that people are going to be talking about for a long time. And I noticed a lot of MTSU fans made the trip out to Bowling Green, so kudos to them. It really made for a great environment up there in Western Kentucky. This was a wild night in Bowling Green, and that's probably the understatement of the year. Much like a lot of the games that we've seen from MTSU as of late, the game was competitive and close for most of the way through. This was a heavyweight fight that went blow for blow. In a game that's often decided by runs, we really saw a lot of runs early on that I'm sure impacted how these two teams played the rest of the game. The thing is, this game was within 3 points for most of the way until about 9 minutes to go in the first half. So early on in the game, it was really, really close. Neither team could get out to a huge advantage. And again, that's kind of where MTSU has been comfortable as of late, because in recent games, they've been playing in all close contests. So they're very used to it. They're very familiar with it. And they had another one here against WKU, who's been in some lopsided games, both good and bad for them thus far this year, but haven't been in as many close games as MTSU had. So that in and of itself was an advantage for the Blue Raiders in this contest. Now, it becomes much more of a mental battle as time goes on when you think about those close games. In a situation like that, you're going to have both teams who are going to be giving it their all down the stretch. And you're going to get great effort. You're going to get great discipline from both sides, you'd imagine. But how will they be able to lock in as they hit adversity, as they start to hit walls, as they start to hit roadblocks? That's a big question that you're going to have to ask yourself. And we saw that play out as this game continued on, which we'll talk about more as we get further on into the show. Yet again, Kamari Lands was in fuego early on for MTSU, as he has been recently in early stretches of games. I'm not sure right now if there's a better starter in Conference USA men's basketball. When you have a guy like that, it's a huge asset for any team, and especially for MTSU, who's already got a great offense. Kamari Lands really only accentuates all the great things that they're already able to do. With all the shootouts that MTSU's been in this season, you want a guy like Kamari Lands, and you got to give him credit. He brings it each and every time he's out there on the floor, especially early on in the games. I just don't see a lot of guys who are able to come off the bench and just start firing strikes. I've heard people use that for quarterbacks before, and I think it's the same thing with basketball players. You can warm up, you can get loose, but as far as early in the game just settling in that fast, very few have done it like Kamari Lands has done it at MTSU, and it was impressive again this past Saturday. Wasn't just him, though. Sean Smith was also really, really good for MTSU early on. He gets 9 points in that first half as well. And he's a player that I'm really starting to notice get some rhythm more and more as time goes on. We've talked about players improving over the season, and I think Sean Smith is a classic example of that. The guy has just adapted to the game, and he started to pick up the pace a little bit more, understand what other teams are trying to throw at him. He's gotten in the film room, and you can see when he gets out there, he's just prepared and knows what to do. And he used that high basketball IQ and that great ability he has to really affect Western Kentucky defensively in this game. So it was really impressive to see Sean Smith get off to that great start. Now, as expected, this game was very high scoring early on. We ended up seeing it at 42-37 going into the half. In shootouts like this, a lot of times the adjustments that you make out of the locker room can be what separates one team from the other team. That kind of goes without saying in basketball games, but especially when you shift with your defense, how you shift your defense, I should say, it's absolutely massive down the stretch. And I think the general prevailing theory coming out of the locker room for both teams and felt among the fan bases is that whoever adjusted better to the opposing team's offense was going to be the team that was able to probably pull this game out, and I think that did play out in the second half. You know your offense is going to deliver. So if you can get that defense working just a little bit, then you really are set up for success. And I'm sure that's what Coach Nick McDevitt was telling the Blue Raiders in the locker room of that game. Now, Western Kentucky was the first team to get their defense righted to start in the third quarter. They got 14 unanswered points in a row, and at that point, it looked like this one was going to be in the books in a hurry. When you have that kind of heavyweight blow that you have to withstand, it is really hard to just put that behind you and keep playing the game of basketball. But again, this MTSU team, they've been able to do that a lot this season, and we saw it again here in this one. They did not quit down the stretch. But man, Western Kentucky, with that blow, they showed how much they can flex on a team really quickly. One thing that helped WKU in this contest was that Tegan Moore was back, and he was back in a big way. If you'll remember, he did not play for Western Kentucky the first time these two teams met on January 31st in the Murphy Center. He did play in this game, and he was fantastic. He was in concussion protocol the first time around, still was recovering from that for a while, ended up coming back just, I think, last week, if I'm not mistaken, and he had a great game Saturday night against MTSU. Averaging over 17 points per game on the season at the time for Western Kentucky. He ends up with 28 points on the night, and he shredded MTSU from the free throw line, for lack of a better term, 13 for 15. So he kept getting to the line, and he made the most of his opportunities, and he was very efficient from the charity stripe as well. That was a huge separator for Western in this game, is that they kept getting to the free throw line. But it wasn't just what we saw from Tegan Moore. It was also Grant Newell. He was great in this game too. 20 points, just as effective as he was in the first game against the Blue Raiders, because if you'll remember back, he was really good in game number one and probably one of the separating factors between the two teams, and we saw that again on Saturday night as well. Now, one thing that held MTSU back in the second half, kind of relating back to those free throws we just talked about for Western Kentucky, and it was the foul trouble. MTSU had several players who ended up getting in foul trouble in this game, and we just talked about how Moore kept getting to the free throw line, and that was really a trend for the whole team for Western Kentucky. Hilltoppers got to the free throw line a total of 32 times in this game, and that really comes down to the style of basketball that they play. What I've noticed about WKU is that they have no qualms about charging into the post and forcing you into a bad spot where you may end up fouling. That's kind of been their play style all year long. MTSU had to face that the first time around, and if you'll remember back to January 31st, Western Kentucky did get to the free throw line quite a few times, and I think they just amped that up even more so in this game, and it worked out in a big way for them, and the Hilltoppers were able to get that advantage, and once they got that 14-0 advantage, they could just lean on MTSU more and more as time went on and play their usual brand of basketball. They got that much more comfortable, and they were able to get in a pretty good sense of control in this contest. Still, though, even with all of that going against them, MTSU refused to go down early in this game. They've always been a hard team to get off your back if you're a Conference USA squad, and that was once again the case here. You just cannot keep this team down. They're going to fight back. They're going to make a run. They're going to make a charge. What helped MTSU was that the defense started to adjust quite a bit as well. They didn't allow as many trips to the free throw line, and they didn't allow Western Kentucky to score at all from the field in 7 of the final 8 minutes of the game. So as far as the back half of the second half went, really the final quarter of the game, the defense was playing some of their best basketball of the season. They just did not let Western get anything easy from the field, which is exactly how you're supposed to play it. Of course, WKU still did get to the free throw line a few times, but it was still a great defensive adjustment and a great defensive pace by the Blue Raiders and their head coach, Nick McDevitt. That is a testament to defensive tenacity and a belief on this basketball team to be able to accomplish something like that. Because again, like I said, MTSU could have easily just just phoned it in, folded it in, and said, we're done for the day. We're not going to be able to win this one. They didn't. They kept fighting. They fought back, and eventually they almost fought their way back into the basketball game. Lance had another fantastic second half, ended up scoring 20 total points on the night, including 4 3-pointers. So once again, Kamaria Lance just continues to drain it from beyond the arc. He's been one of the best three-point shooters, I'd say, in Conference USA in this latter part of the season. Sean Smith ends up going for 19 in a really dominant performance for him. Very impressive. As great as Smith was, though, I would guess that the one shot, and this is kind of an athlete's mindset, but the one shot that's going to bother him more than anything else that happened in this game was that final floater attempt he had against Western Kentucky. Had a chance from mid-range with probably about 2 seconds left, got the floater off, and it looked like for just a second there that it was going to go in, and MTSU was going to be able to bring this game into overtime, which I think would have been their 5th in the last 10 or 11 games that they've had overtime in. All of them in Conference USA, by the way, which is just absurd to think about. But again, that's kind of just how MTSU's played, and that's where they've been comfortable as of late. So Smith had the opportunity to potentially bring this game to overtime, just couldn't do it. And I know that Sean is going to be upset about that. I'm sure he's still been thinking about it in the days and hours since. But you can have those opportunities as an athlete. You're going to miss those. It's just, it's going to happen. It's the law of chance, and Sean's a great player, and I don't think that it's something that he should hang his head too much about, and I don't think MTSU should be too hung up about it either, because, again, he put his team in position to possibly bring it to overtime with his great performance already. So you got to give Sean Smith credit for that, and obviously hate that he couldn't hit the final shot, but still a great effort from him down the stretch there in the post. But looking back at this game after the 82-80 win by Western Kentucky, the pressure is really on the Blue Raiders at this point as we get much closer towards the end of the year. I don't know if you guys realize this, but there are only a handful of games, maybe I think 5 or 6 total games left. I'm looking at the remaining schedule. They've got Sam Houston tonight in Huntsville, right here on WGNS, by the way. We'll get more into that later. Then they head back home to play Delaware on Saturday. It's going to be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. After that, there's only going to be 4 games left in the regular season. So time is of the essence right now for the Blue Raiders and for Conference USA. Every game you play down the stretch is going to mean that much more. When you take a look at the current CUSA standings, MTSU is currently 7th overall in Conference USA. So they're in a dogfight with quite a few other teams who are also trying to vie for a Conference USA spot. MTSU has not locked anything up, and if they don't finish this season strong, they could very easily see those Conference USA tournament chances slip away. So MTSU is going to have to make sure to, like I said, play their best brand of basketball at the end of the season and kick the tempo up a notch just a little bit. And I'm sure they understand that. I'm sure that's what they've been preparing for, and I'm sure that's been a message reinforced by Nick McDevitt. You got to play your best basketball right here at the end of the season if you want to solidify your chance at the Conference USA tournament. And again, that starts tonight against Sam Houston, the Bearcats. Pretty long road trip for MTSU. This is, I think, maybe their longest of the year outside of going to Las Cruces to play New Mexico State, and I guess any road trip they would take to UTEP. This is going to be a long game. So this is a big test, not just from that perspective, but also from the perspective of, can you put the disappointing loss against your rival in the rearview mirror and focus on the task at hand? This is going to be a big mental battle for MTSU to see if they can overcome the roadblock that Western Kentucky set. You never want to lose to your rival twice in one season. MTSU, unfortunately, has now done that, but all hope is not lost. I called a game Monday night, Shelbyville Central girls basketball. They lost to Warren County twice this season. They played them a third time in the satellite round of the playoffs before the district tournament. They won that game. So you could very well meet Western Kentucky again if you're MTSU. That's the motivation. And again, you just want to make sure to play winning basketball at the end of the year against any Conference USA opponent you face. So this is going to be a big test. Starts tonight here on WGNS, 6:30, tip-off at 6:30, pregame at 6, right here on WGNS. Of course, Chip Walters will have the call. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we will talk MTSU women's basketball as well as some MTSU men's tennis and MTSU baseball's opening series. All that more on the other side of this break on All Sports Talk.
This is Chip Walters, and I'm honored to be your 2024 MTAR Realtor of the Year. I'm with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates, and like many of you, I've seen the real estate market shift and change. People often ask, Chip, what's really going on? Well, that's a great question, and I believe in answering with solid, factual data. So let's cut through some of the noise. I invite you to reach out. Let's have a conversation about your real estate goals and the current market trends in your neighborhood. You can find all my contact information at choosechip.net.
Whether you need general vehicle upkeep and maintenance or a complete vehicle overhaul, Hall's Auto Care is here for you. We're locally owned and operated by Greg Hall and have been in business since 2014. You'll get excellent service and trustworthy advice with Hall's Auto Care. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau. We're ready to help get you safely on the road. Hall's Auto Care, 907 Ridgely Road, just off Broad Street behind Chili's. Online at hallsautocare.net. Hall's Auto Care.
Lace up your best kicks for a night of impact benefiting First Shot. Join us for the annual Sneaker Ball, presented by Venture Express. Spend Sunday, April 26th with NFL Hall of Famer and Super Bowl MVP Marcus Allen. The event kicks off at 6 with a VIP meet and greet at 5. Reserve your table today. Call Coach Andy Herzer at 615-631-5312. We'll see you at the Sneaker Ball, benefiting First Shot on April 26th.
Does your home need freshening up? Let our family at Farrah Construction help you. We do painting, new flooring, anything that you need. If you can dream it, Farrah Construction can turn it into reality. Farrah Construction offers high-quality craftsmanship, quick response, and attention to detail. For home restoration at a price you can afford, Farrah Construction can get the job done no matter how big or small it is. I'm Ron Hall. Shop local. Let our family business help you. Farrah Construction Company.
South Central Bank has 2 CD specials that will help your money grow. South Central Bank has a 5-month CD with an annual percentage yield of 4.15% or a 25-month CD with an annual percentage yield of 3.8%. 2 great ways to put your money to work. You choose the term that works best for you. $500 minimum balance to obtain the APY. Stop by any of our convenient South Central Bank locations today and take advantage of our 2 great rates. South Central Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Are you paying too much for home and auto insurance? Let the experienced professionals at My Team Insurance in Murfreesboro help. With decades of experience, their team provides superior customer service, low rates, and a clear understanding of your coverage needs. Whether it's home, auto, health, business, or life insurance, My Team Insurance makes protection simple and affordable. Visit myteaminsurance.com today. That's myteaminsurance.com. My Team Insurance, proud supporters of the Blue Raiders.
Good afternoon. A couple of accidents in their cleanup stages, especially this one on 440 westbound here at 65. It's heavy now, trying to work your way out through the Mount Juliet area now, headed into Wilson County, down I-40 eastbound. As you pass 840, it's loading up pretty good now on 24 East as we take a look at it live here at Bell Road, pushing on out into Murfreesboro, Rutherford County. No shortage of radar out there in Rutherford County. Stein Dental Care in Nashville. That's where I go. Google Stein Dental Care in Nashville. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, wgnsradio.com, and Big G TV.
And welcome back here on a Wednesday night to All Sports Talk in beautiful, somewhat, I guess, dreary Murfreesboro, Tennessee. That just due to the weather. It's a little foggy, a little overcast outside. I'm going to be honest, folks. I did not expect any rain today, but here it is. It's a nice surprise, if anything. And, you know, I think we did need a little precipitation, so I'm not going to harp on it for too long. I think it's a good thing, all things considered. One other thing that was a good thing, the Daytona 500. We'll get more into that in the show later, but, man, was that a fantastic race. You know what else is fantastic right now? MTSU women's basketball. They are playing some fantastic basketball right now over there in the Murphy Center and all across Conference USA. They're rolling in a big way, and we got the chance to see that again this past Saturday against Kennesaw State. Man, this was an exceptional performance by this team and a game that they really needed to reinforce their current status in the conference. Really, though, it was a great week when you couple together the fact that the Jacksonville State game was on Thursday. So you needed a couple of impressive wins to further set yourself up in CUSA play, and, well, you absolutely got it. I want to shout out as well assistant coach Matt Insel. His wife Autumn had a surgery yesterday and is hoping to get the news that she has officially beaten cancer, so I want to shout out her as well. Both Autumn and Rick obviously wish them the best in this continued process. Lady Raiders in pink, by the way, did a fantastic job while handling Kennesaw State early on Saturday and really showed no issue in handling them down the stretch of that game. In this game, they really honed in on perimeter play and made sure that they played well from beyond the arc. And it felt like they were going to be able to do that very effectively down the stretch of this one, which they were. One thing that we've seen get better and better for MTSU as this season has moved forward is the three-point game. They've done a fantastic job of starting to get people open. The design of the play is getting better. They're getting people better looks, and it all played out here in this game. Elena Contreras was the key star who just looked unstoppable from three-point land in this game. We've seen her further develop that aspect of her game, much like the other players in recent weeks, and it was really apparent here in this one. 6 3-pointers, new career high, and in a way, she single-handedly kept Kennesaw State at bay for portions of the game with just how dominant that she was, especially in the first half. She got a season-high 28 points on top of all of that, which it's just sensational to get that in a conference game against this Kennesaw State team who may not be at the top of the conference standings right now, but that's still an impressive number to get against anybody who's a conference opponent. She has emerged into a player who I'd say, and I'm not the one who decides this, but I think she's at least knocking on the door of first-team all-conference. With what she's been able to do down the stretch this season, I think you may want to give her that consideration because, man, she is playing some incredible basketball right now. I think she's got a great argument for that kind of honor. Macy Pfeiffer was great, too, in this game. She got off to a really hot start, got 10 points on 4 for 6 shooting in the first quarter of this game, much like we talked about with Kamari Lands in the MTSU men's game against Western Kentucky. Having a player who can come off the bus and just dominate like that is a huge asset for any team to have. And I think it kind of spurred the Lady Raiders the rest of the way throughout this game. And once you had that, the floodgates, the proverbial floodgates anyway, started to open for the Lady Raiders. Pfeiffer ends up with 18 points on the night and 8 rebounds. Again, she is also great at crashing the glass and getting boards for MTSU. Did it again right here. Finally, also, Blair Bogus did her thing. 8 points, 4 rebounds. Not as much as we've seen numbers-wise in recent games from her, but again, her impact is felt just by watching the game and seeing how she's able to get good looks inside and, much like Pfeiffer, get rebounds. She affects the game in such a visual way, and although the numbers maybe didn't fully reflect that in this one, she still did a very, very good job. I mean, I could talk about individual performances in this game until the cows come home, but this was a huge team game for MTSU. That may have been the most impressive thing in my eyes. Three-point game was so much more efficient compared to Kennesaw State. They were 44% from beyond the arc. Meanwhile, the Owls hit just 1 3 all night. Now, they're not a big three-point shooting team, but to hold anybody to just 1 3-pointer in a game, that takes some skill. And I think the Lady Raiders defensively should be very proud of themselves for accomplishing that. That kind of demonstrates the disparity in offense between these two teams. It was pretty apparent just from that standpoint of the game in this one. In terms of teams who are locked in for the end of the season, I think MTSU is certainly at that mark right now. They get the 57-48 win over Jacksonville State on Thursday, and then the dominant win over Kennesaw State on Saturday. And you look at them now, they're currently, I think, 4th, if I'm not mistaken, or tied for 4th at least in the Conference USA standings. They're right up there. There's no guarantee for what is coming in the future for MTSU, but what I will say is that the formula is there for this Lady Raider squad to go on a run, and they've got the personnel, they've got the coaches to do it. We've said for weeks now that MTSU is at their best when they're playing as a complete team and limiting mistakes. That's what they're doing, if you'll notice, more and more as this season continues on. Now, I don't know what this MTSU team's going to do down the line, but I can confidently say that Rick Insel has gotten everything possible out of these women on the hardwood each and every night, and they're showing that effort here late in the season. They're showing what they're capable of when they're playing at that high efficiency. And if that continues throughout the rest of the year, this team, in my mind, has no problem potentially making a run at the CUSA Championship and potentially an NCAA tournament berth. So this is going to be a fun team to watch down the stretch, folks. Make no mistake about it. Another fun sequence from this weekend and another fun team to watch, the MTSU baseball squad. The Blue Raiders took on the Bellarmine Knights and Alabama A&M last night in midweek baseball action. So, of course, baseball came back this weekend. We got to learn a lot about who they are and what they could become this season. Now, there is definitely still a lot to be determined from this Blue Raider squad. But what we can know is what we saw at the Reese Smith Jr. Field. Now, this early stage in a season is kind of a discovery phase already, right? And when you are playing out of conference, you may not be playing in the way that you were looking for down the stretch, not at your full capability, but what you are doing is you're starting to build those pieces more and more. So some people may look at this first series against Bellarmine and may not be entirely happy with how everything went, but you can't expect perfection in the first series. That's a huge thing to keep in mind. If perfection happened every game, then there'd be no point to watching baseball. People are going to make mistakes, especially early on. That's what these series are for, is to get better, to learn, and improve. You want to win every game you're a part of course, but these are learning opportunities early in the season, just like we saw with MTSU women's basketball. Made some mistakes early in the year, starting to get those corrected, starting to play better down the stretch. I think the same could be true for MTSU baseball. I think one of the things that we certainly can be optimistic about is pitching for the Blue Raiders. There were a lot of question marks about just how good the pitching was going to be for MTSU this year, and I think overall we saw a lot of positive signs for the Blue Raiders, as well as maybe a little work to be done. Now, Gavin King played a great game for the Blue Raiders from the mound in game number 2 of the series. I know that MTSU ended up losing that game, but King goes for 4 innings pitched, gives up just 1 earned run, and gets 5 strikeouts to his credit. So he had a really nice looking game against Bellarmine in that second contest, and he's one guy that, we've heard some talk about him, but coming out of the bullpen, I think a lot of people kind of, not to say they overlooked him, but maybe just didn't consider him as heavily as some of the other pitchers. And he showed that he is certainly capable this season of being one of the better bullpen arms for MTSU this season. I'm very excited to see what Gavin's able to do the rest of the way, because this was a really impressive performance from him. We do have to keep in mind that as far as pitching goes, like I said, there's still some work to be done. You could argue that pitching played a part in the Blue Raiders dropping game number 2 against Bellarmine in that series. But again, folks, perspective is the key. Remember those 3 words, perspective is key. This is just the first series of what's going to be a long year, and you have to remember that before any assumptions get made on a whim. We've seen the best teams in the nation in baseball lose to a random team in a midweek series, and they end up going on to go to Omaha, play in the College World Series. So it's not a sentence for MTSU or for any other team to not be at their best early in a season. You can certainly overcome that. You can certainly go on to do special things. And was MTSU perfect? No, but they still have a lot of positive signs for people to consider. One of those positive signs is the batters. I think there were a lot of guys who looked really good this past weekend and last night against Alabama A&M. I think this conversation starts with Dean O'Neill, because, oh my goodness, this guy is something else. Just last night against Alabama A&M, in the 19-2 run rule win for the Blue Raiders, he goes 5 for 5 from the plate with 4 RBIs. He's already got 9 hits on the season to lead the team, along with 6 RBIs and 5 runs. Dean O'Neill, we heard a lot about what he could bring to the table this season, and he is bringing a lot of good stuff for MTSU. I'm not saying he's going to go 5 for 5 in every game, but man, that is an impressive way to announce yourself early on in a new season, especially in your first midweek game, to do something like that. O'Neill looked great, but he wasn't alone. Brett Rogers also had a perfect game for MTSU from the plate. 5 hits, 4 RBIs in game number 3 of the Bellarmine series. And believe it or not, that is the second time in his career he's done that. So Brett Rogers, no stranger to having great days from the plate. And of course, with his history with MTSU, he's been with the program for a while. He knows how these things operate. I remember calling games for him years ago, still here for the Blue Raiders and still doing some fantastic stuff against opposing teams. And he's maybe the most consistently dangerous guy from the plate, if that's a term that we can use, with what he's able to do, how often he's able to get hits and just put MTSU into position. When you have two guys who can pop off like that, that is a huge luxury to have down the stretch because it means that you're never truly out of a game. It just takes one big swing from one of those guys. You know what else helps with that? Home runs. And MTSU had a lot of home runs. Already 8 home runs on the season. Cooper Clapp and Tyler Minnick each have 2 already. When I had Willie Failer on a couple weeks ago, or I guess it was last week, we talked about this, and those are 2 of the guys that we mentioned could be big home run hitters, and they proved it in that first series against Bellarmine and against Alabama A&M. Add all of that to what they've accomplished just on the scoreboard, and I think you've got a really special team in your wake. It is a team of... It has good parts right now, and you already see what they can do. But imagine when they are able to fully congeal what this team is going to be able to accomplish. It should get you really excited if you're a Blue Raider fan. And, of course, we're going to learn more about this team as they face steeper and steeper competition down the stretch. They play St. Bonaventure this weekend in a series. And that's going to be another big proving ground for them. And then, of course, I think the week after they play Illinois State at home in a series. So they've got several big series coming up, all of them at home, all of them chances to show just how good they can be. And I think that there's a lot of people who are going to be very curious to see how this team continues to respond, how they continue to develop. And I think there are a lot of reasons to say that. So good work by MTSU baseball in that respect. Real quick, MTSU men's tennis, they picked up a big win against Louisville on Friday night at home. Like we just discussed on the show last Thursday, I told you guys that I had a good feeling about this match, and I felt like it set up for MTSU so well. And lo and behold, that is exactly what happened. Once again in this game, MTSU picked up the doubles point against the Cardinals. They've been great at that all season. They've got 2 guys who are just really good at making that happen. That's the team of Kareem Alameen and Andre Horak. They set the tone. They're the guys that everybody else tries to chase as far as opposing doubles teams, and they seemingly always are able to come out with a win. But one thing that I think people don't consider with them as much is their singles prowess. Alameen is currently ranked number 113 in the nation in the ITA rankings. That stands for International Tennis Association. And you've got Andre Horak as well, number 115 in the country, getting the finishing touch for a win in this match for the Blue Raiders. Alameen picks up the win against the Louisville number 2 in straight sets. Horak gets the win as the number 1 seed. We say it a lot, but for a team to be from Conference USA and accomplishing these things, it's just special. And I think it's something people need to enjoy and respect because you don't know when you're going to see a run like this from any MTSU squad. It just doesn't happen very often, and this team does it on a consistent basis. Jimmy Borendame, the culture he's built up, the teams that he's assembled, it's really special. Now, I know that MTSU did lose the Oklahoma State match. There were a few things going against them. Of course, they just played against Louisville on Friday night, and one thing that people may not have known is that they had a 10-hour flight delay before they played the Pokes in Stillwater on Sunday. So that is a lot to overcome. I can get jet lag from a very small flight. I can't even imagine having to deal with that if you're a part of MTSU men's tennis. So, man, give them credit for going out there and at least competing. Obviously, it's not going to be an excuse for them for having lost the match, but still a lot of variables working against them, and I think, if anything, it's just going to make them stronger. They respond well after losses. Very rarely do they lose back-to-back matches. I don't expect that to be the case going into this weekend. They've got some big tests coming up. We'll talk more about this on the show tomorrow night. Battle in the Borough. They play Utah on Friday, Old Dominion on Saturday, and Rice on Sunday, so needless to say, get ready for a wild weekend at the ATC, folks. When we come back, oh yes, it's time to review the Daytona 500, the Great American Race, the crashes, the big ones, the dramatic finish, and everything in between. We'll go over all of it, including the historical significance of Tyler Reddick's Daytona 500 victory. All that and more, plus the Blue Raider Insider Report on the other side of this break. This is All Sports Talk.
This is Pastor Nikki Ajapong, the lead pastor of Holy Hill Chapel in Murfreesboro.
Hear our sermons on WGNS every Sunday night at 7:30.
Our congregation is made up of a variety of nationalities.
Visit holyhillchapeltn.org to hear our podcast.
This is a paid legal ad.
I'm attorney John Day. Many lawyers are quick to say that they'll take the insurance company to court for you. But how do you know if the lawyer is an experienced trial attorney? Ask them if they're certified. In order to be certified, you have to have tried a lot of cases, taken a 2-day test, and get recommendations from judges and other lawyers. My wife Joy and I are both certified as civil trial specialists, and we have the experience to get the answers, justice, and compensation your family deserves. Call the law offices of John Day.
Jennings and Ayers Funeral Home has served Murfreesboro families with compassion and care since 1880. As a family-owned funeral home, we're committed to honoring every life with dignity through traditional services, cremation options, and pre-planning that gives you peace of mind. For over 140 years, we've been here when it matters most. Visit JenningsandAyers.com. Jennings and Ayers Funeral Home, honoring life and comforting families since 1880.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Auctions are easy, fast, and profitable.
You have a staff that comes to your home. They walk you through it. It's been my experience. What I thought I should get for my home, I got much more for it.
Call Parks Auction and Realty or visit parksauction.com.
Clark's Auction Company will get you top dollar for your property.
Parks Auction Company, committed to auction excellence.
Sold it to you, 27.5.
From brakes and alignments to new tires and wheels, Tire World, locally owned and operated in Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne.
Tire World, we keep your family rolling.
Online at tireworld.us.
Next on All Sports Talk, it's the Blue Raider Insider Report with Chip Walters of Exit Realty, Bob Lamb & Associates.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. The Blue Raider basketball team on the road in Huntsville, Texas today to take on Sam Houston. The Blue Raiders looking to bounce back after splitting last week's game when the Blue Raiders play Sam Houston tonight on the road and Delaware at home on Saturday. The team is in Huntsville, Texas to take on the Bearcats before welcoming the Blue Hens to Murphy Center for the first time on Saturday. The contest will tip off at 6:30 tonight and 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Both will stream on ESPN+. Both will be on the Blue Raider Network. Some Blue Raider notes for you. Last week on the road at Kennesaw State in Western Kentucky, Sean Smith had his best two-game stretch as a Blue Raider, averaging 20.5 points on the week. The grad student tallied his first 20-plus point performance at Middle Tennessee against Kennesaw with 22 points as a pivotal part of the Blue Raider victory. Against Western Kentucky, Smith followed it up with 19 points and 2 made threes, along with a season-high 7 assists. He has had 15 games this year where he has had 4 or more assists. Well, tonight, the Blue Raiders take on a red-hot Sam Houston team that finds itself all alone in second place in Conference USA as the Bearcats right now 9-5 in the league. They are overall 17-8. They trail Liberty. Middle right now is in a 3-way tie for 7th place with Kennesaw and UTEP. All three are at 6 and 8 on the year. Don't forget, coming up this Saturday, it is Legends Weekend, and many former Blue Raider basketball players and coaches will be returning, and the spotlight this year will be on the 10th anniversary of the Blue Raider team that knocked off second-seeded Michigan State up in St. Louis in the NCAA tournament. Looking at the other games going on in Conference USA tonight, Western Kentucky is at Delaware, Jacksonville State at Louisiana Tech, and Kennesaw State is at Missouri State. Tomorrow, FIU will play at Liberty. No games, no Lady Raider basketball game in the midweek tonight or tomorrow night, but tomorrow evening there are 4 other games. Delaware plays at FIU, Sam Houston at Kennesaw State, Liberty at Missouri State, and Louisiana Tech will be at Jacksonville State. The Lady Raiders back in action on Saturday when they travel to Bowling Green to take on Western Kentucky. That will be a 2 o'clock start at the Diddle Arena in Bowling Green. Conference USA standings and women's action, Louisiana Tech in first place at 12-1. Middle is all alone in second place at 9-4. Sam Houston just a half game back at 8-4, and FIU is at 8-5. Missouri State 7-5, Liberty 7-6, and that is a look at the top half of the league. Blue Raider baseball moved to 3-1 on the young season as it opened up its midweek slate with a bang and a 19-2 win over Alabama A&M in a 7-inning run rule game on Tuesday. Dana O'Neill led the way for the Blue Raider offense, notching a 5-for-5 game with 4 RBIs at the plate. O'Neill is the second player in as many games to accomplish that feat after Brett Rogers powered his way to 5 hits in a win over Bellarmine. Overall, the MTSU offense put up 15 hits in the win while putting up double-digit scoring frame for the first time since May 15th against Rice. The Blue Raiders scored 10 runs in the opening inning of the ball game against Alabama A&M. Middle is back in action at home all weekend long, 3 o'clock on Friday, 1 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday as they host the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure. That is it for today. Back on the air at 6 o'clock tonight with Countdown to Tip-Off right here on the Big G, WGNS.
It's all sports talk from the Good Neighbor Network, FM 1019, 100.5, AM 1450, WGNSradio.com, and Big G TV.
Thank you, Chip, for delivering that one from Huntsville, Texas, and looking forward to seeing how MTSU men's basketball stacks up to the number 2 team in CUSA. Sam Houston, pregame for the men's basketball game tonight will be right here on WGNS at 6 o'clock, right after the conclusion of our show. And I guess I can go ahead and make a little announcement. You know, Chip was talking about the Legends Weekend coming up. Of course, MTSU men's basketball playing Delaware on the Blue Raider Network, and pleased to announce that I'll be a part of that broadcast. I'll be doing the halftime show, so looking forward to that. Appreciate Chip and the crew here on the Blue Raider Network and WGNS for letting me step into that role. Looking forward to bringing you coverage live from the Murphy Center, so excited about that. Another thing I'm excited about is the 2026 Daytona 500, and oh man, as Darrell Waltrip would say, boogity, boogity, boogity. This was a fantastic race all the way through. First thing I want to say is I'm so glad that it got in. I think NASCAR moving it up an hour was a fantastic move. I know there was some discussion about whether or not the race should have been moved up, but with the rain coming in and the fact that it did eventually move in an hour, basically an hour after the race had concluded, and it was a downpour. The race would have not restarted. Good call by NASCAR to see that happen, and I'm just so glad that we got it in and we didn't have to deal with, you know, a caution coming out for rain with 5 to go, and then the race becomes a source of controversy, and that's a whole mess. But man, the Great American Race has come and gone. I think it's safe to say that this was a smashing success. I'm not talking about the 4,000 cars who were smashed up in this race either. I'm talking about the actual racing product that we got, because those last few laps after the final restart are what you dream of as a race fan. That was dramatic, that was engaging, and it was exciting. And I think, if anything, if you're a NASCAR fan, that's what you've been waiting for a long time. And the 500's always like that to some degree, but it was really like that here in this game. And what a big win for Tyler Reddick and 2311. You know, this was a big win, not just for the team, but also for NASCAR as a whole. And, you know, we had the whole situation with the lawsuit, quote unquote, between NASCAR and 2311 and Front Row Motorsports this past off season, and obviously all that's been cleared up in the meantime. It's good to see that everybody's back on the same page, and it seems like positive change has come as a result. And this is obviously a big win for the team, especially for Tyler Reddick. Man, what a win this is going to be for him, because winning the Daytona 500 does a lot to help shape your legacy as a NASCAR driver. For those who may not be as familiar with the NASCAR sphere, it's like the Super Bowl of stock car racing. That's a nickname for it, and it's a special race. Every year you dream of winning that race. You dream of lifting the Harley J. Earl Trophy, and this year it was Tyler Reddick. He made the right moves down the stretch, and now a guy who went winless in 2025 won't be able to say that about 2026. He gets it started off on the right foot, and he sets himself up for a fantastic season. We've seen guys who win Daytona 500s that can really springboard them to special things. We know Reddick is a special driver, and I think this only further goes to reinforce that. And I'm excited to see how he's able to use this the rest of the way, because he could have some special things coming up. Now, the actual racing from Reddick, it was superb as well. And credit to him for fighting back on that last lap, passing Chase Elliott and Zane Smith in the fashion that he did. that was a fantastic last lap slingshot. As he was going through turn 3 and 4, I remember I was watching it with my grandmother, my mom, and my brother, and we were all just thinking, there's no way that anyone's going to be able to get past Chase unless it's Zane Smith. And all of a sudden, here comes Reddick out of nowhere, seemingly. Looked like he had some sort of rocket booster strapped to his car as he came around the corner. I don't know where he got that extra speed from, but it must have been the air coming off of Zane Smith's car in the draft, whatever the case may be. I was able to just slingshot right by him in a very Cale Yarbrough-esque fashion, and he not only gets by Zane Smith, he then goes to the inside on a crossover on Chase Elliott, gets by him. Of course, they end up wrecking behind them. Big crash right at the start-finish line, and Tyler Reddick emerges from the rubble with the victory. And, that was a really cool moment. It was a great race down to the wire. I wish there wouldn't have been so much crashing, but you got to admit that those guys, they're going to go for it. And I'm glad that we just got to see a race to the line. We had that crash in turn 1 as well on the final lap, and I thought the race was going to be over then because on so many occasions, NASCAR has just said, nope, it's time to throw the caution, let the race be over. Wasn't the case here. They held the caution flag up. They waited and let the guys keep racing. Now, that's going to be sort of a controversial call to some people. I can understand where you're coming from if you didn't agree with the call that NASCAR made. Here's what I will say. I think too many times that races have not been allowed to play out naturally because of a premature caution or a mistake. I think it is in NASCAR's best interest to make sure it's a situation where you need to throw that caution because these guys, if there's time for them to move out of the way, then you give them that time. And if they've proven that they can't, then I think you throw the caution. And I think NASCAR kind of set that precedent, not just in the Cup Series, but also in the O'Reilly Series and in the Craftsman Truck Series this weekend. And I thought it was a really smart thing for them to be able to do that. And it makes the finishes that much more fun because everyone wants to see a race to the line. That's what we got, and that's what we're going to remember, I think, from this Daytona 500. I thought overall the racing was great all the way through. Couple of exceptions on that, which I'll get to in a second, but it was virtually 2 and 3 wide the whole race, and I don't think you can be greedy when it comes to Daytona because, man, that was about as good as you could ask for as far as that goes. I mean, I've seen way too many single-file choo-choo trains, for lack of a better term, that I'll call them, and this was not that. It was great side-by-side racing, great competition, great battling most of the way through, again, with a couple of exceptions, which I'll get to in just a moment. Now, I know what the big talking point was from a lot of people. Did the fuel-saving portion of the race take away from the finish? I think that it did in some ways, but I don't know how you easily get rid of that. I know there are theories, things you could do. Some people say you need to add back more horsepower, whatever the case may be, but to me, fuel saving has always been a part of NASCAR, and I know a lot of people don't want to see it be a part of the Daytona 500, but inevitably it's going to happen. It's part of the natural order of it. And I know that it stunk to see a lack of quote-unquote racing, but to the people who are upset, I would just say I don't know how you fix that, because inevitably, fuel is going to become a factor when you're in the 500, and if you don't get a surplus of cautions, people aren't going to be as inclined to race as hard because they got to save fuel, and they didn't wreck, so that's what happened. So I understand the frustration, but I don't think this one is one that you can just fix out of the blue. Now, what do we do with stage racing in the future? I'm going to go on record and say I'm not a fan of stage racing. I didn't like it when it was introduced in 2017. I think it kind of just it breaks the rhythm of the race, and you don't let the race kind of breathe for itself. We don't need predetermined cautions. Here's what I will say. If you want to keep stage racing, you can, but I would eliminate the predetermined cautions and just keep the stages with the points. And then you just keep racing. That way you don't disrupt the flow of the race. You let things play out a little more naturally because it still feels a little bit controlled whenever you do something like that. So I would fix that. I would change that if it was me. And I will say this last thing, it feels so good to not have to worry about playoff implications yet. Not once did I hear Tyler Reddick has won the Daytona 500 and he's locked into the playoffs. No, we can let the event breathe for itself and we don't have to worry about playoff implications because NASCAR and any sport, it's not just about playoffs. It's about individual, I sounded like Jim Mora there. It's not just about playoffs. It's about the race and the event itself, especially an event as big as the Daytona 500, and they let it breathe. which I think is a huge win for NASCAR. And obviously, they've gotten a lot of big publicity from this. Tyler Reddick has been on all the big shows. He was talking to Stephen A. Smith. He was on First Take. He's been getting interviewed by every media personality under the sun. So I was very excited to see that. And I think it's a huge win for NASCAR and for Tyler. And man, I cannot wait to see where things go from here. They go to Echo Park Speedway in Atlanta this weekend, which, by the way, I'll be there for the Cup race. So if you're in Atlanta and you want to say hi, I'm in the Petty Grandstand. Hope to see you there. But I'll have a full report from that race when I go. We'll talk about that on the show more tomorrow and, of course, next week. As for tonight, that is going to do it for our show. Like I mentioned, we will be back tomorrow with more of that all sports talk goodness. And coming up right after the show is over, we have pregame for MTSU men's basketball as they take on the Sam Houston Bearcats. Voice of the Blue Raiders, Chip Walters, will be on the call with tip-off coming up at 6:30. Huge, critical Conference USA game for MTSU men's basketball. But as for tonight, that is going to do it. So for my producer, Jackson, and for all of you listening in, I am Dylan Simmons saying so long. This has been All Sports Talk, and have an electric night.
Subscribe to Big G TV, local content that matters to Rutherford County.